Okay. Commencement. So, hello YouTube. This is from my YouTube channel. We're just sitting in my apartment, gonna talk about some sobriety stuff. This is my friend Sam. Say hello, Sam.
Hi, Sam.
Hi. Sam recently celebrated her 1 year sober. Actually, it's today, right?
It's actually today.
It is today.
Today is the day.
Cool. I've known Sam for a while now, and I thought it would be kind of cool to have her on the YouTube channel. And I even was kind of thinking that, like, as we were talking before this happened, we were kind of rambling, and I was like, this would be great on a podcast. And so maybe that's kind of like where, whereas I might kind of do that and like talk to other people, or maybe you and me make the podcast and we talk to people. Look at that.
Hey.
Boy girl podcast,
cool
no
things.
drinking. We talk cool things. Throughout this video, we'll probably be sipping on this. This is a non-alcoholic beer called Athletic Brewing Company. It's called Upside Dawn. It's very tasty for those people that still enjoy non-alcoholic beers. Cheers. For those of you that don't, that's totally fine. But effectively, these are malt sodas. So, anyway, let's just get right into it. The first question we got out of my two that I wrote down.
Nice. We were prepared.
We're just gonna wing it.
We talk cool things. Though.
Is how we know and how we met each other. How we met each other, and funny enough, that's kind of fuzzy, like in my head. I know that
we were both drinking.
We were both drinking. Yes. So I know we were both still drinking, and it, was a couple of years back, but you were one of the people that, like, I knew you existed, but like we never hung out or anything.
We talked at the bar, but we weren't friends.
Exactly. We were like bar fly
Everyone
acquaintances.
has those. Yes.
Yeah.
You know them, you don't see them, but you drink together all the time.
Yeah. Hey, God, so good to see you. What is your name?
I do that sober though, so I can't really just blame that on the alcohol.
Yeah. Well, not everyone's interesting, okay?
Which it was at Fog Belt, which is important to me because everything important in my life came from Fog Belt.
Yeah, well, and that's important to note is that, so Fog Belt Brewing is the brewery that we both work at, and I don't know if
Supports and condones our sobriety.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which has been very important.
And it's super cool that, that like in a industry that its primary focus is selling beer, and still very supportive of that. And the meaning behind Fog Belt, really quick, is that there's a bunch of redwood trees in Northern California, and they're between this belt of fog geographically, and that's why it's called the Fog Belt. So I know that's kind of like a weird word if you're not hearing most people don't hear the words Fog Belt
not very
together.
Often.
Yeah, so
yes, it is weird. If you're in the area, come find us.
Yeah, the good food. Even if you don't drink, we don't drink, and the food is fire. But this is not an advertisement. So Sam and me met, a couple of years back.
Sam and me?
Sam and I?
There it is.
Sam. Tune in to Sam and me. It's non-alcoholics are starting to slap. So yeah, you tell about how you met me and like.
So the first memory I have of hanging out with Kyle was this really crazy conversation. Neither of us remember. We were both super drunk at Fog Belt. And then there was a time, like a little period of time, that I kind of went away. I was living in Windsor and didn't really come back in. So then I re-met you when you were the sober bartender. And that's really the Kyle that I know and love and remember. I don't really remember drinking Kyle, so I don't really have much to compare it to. But I do remember starting to go in, and there was the bartender that didn't drink. And that's kind of where I think my sobriety would have started. I still drank all the way through for 4 years every time I saw him, but it slowly became more and more envious of him being sober and kind of starting to see his evolution.
And I think that's something that happens a lot, like when you're actively drinking and you pee, when you pee and let it all out. When you see people that are sober and you just see like their lives are together and their shit is together and they're happy, and you see that part and you're envious of that, where you're just like, I wish I didn't have to fucking worry about drinking all the time or constantly have this like responsibility to my drinking all the time. So I think that's a very natural thing that comes up, is that like
And that's it. It's totally a responsibility. It was constantly, I would wake up and be like, okay, I'm going to get things done, but I'm going to first have a beer. And then there was my day. My whole day was then trying to figure out how I could trick everybody into not thinking I was a drunk. So I would go to 5 separate places. I would have one at each, maybe 2.
Would you do this thing where like you woke up and you were like, I'm gonna get like all this stuff done today, and then you have your list and you're like, okay, cool, and I'm gonna have a beer while I do this stuff, and then you have the beer and you're like, no,
Done.
not doing, yeah,
Day over.
you're like,
The whole
not
thing's
doing
done.
that, yeah.
Or if I could justify it by if I got one thing halfway done was
Yeah.
good enough.
Damn, that is a low bar.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
think about starting something,
If you
can have a 6-pack.
consider being a good person, it's fine. You can get drunk. Like it was my day. My whole day was trying to figure out how to get. And if I couldn't do it, I was angry.
And I think
So angry.
I think our dynamic was a little bit different in the way that like, so I've been with Jenica this whole time, and a huge part of my alcoholism was hiding that from Jenica, you know. So it wasn't just like the people around me or who I was meeting up
It
with.
was your significant other.
Yeah, it was that like I had someone I lived with that I was constantly, you know, so like, you know, a couple beers I'd be fine, but as the day progressed, like, or even if it was late at night, I was getting off work, I'm like, I have to make sure I'm coming home late enough that she's asleep, but not so late that she knew that I was out drinking.
So I was living with a former CHP officer whose life was arresting drunk drivers. So I had to come home late enough that he would be drunk enough on his wine that he wouldn't notice, and it was dark enough that he couldn't see me, or he had to be in bed. So it was like if I was coming home about 6, 7 o'clock, I would actually have to go out and drink more so that I could avoid coming home drunk. And for me, that made sense.
Yeah.
That was totally justified.
The logic that you that ends up growing out of your like alcohol brain is nuts.
It's insane. You like look
it
back
is.
at it
It's
now and
insanity.
you're just like, I cannot believe. And one thing, when I did finally quit, I saved $400 on the first month.
Damn. Yeah.
Like just every time I had extra cash, and that was like
Well, think about
loosely,
that. That's
but-
about $100 a week. And what if you go out 3
and
times?
that's low.
Yeah.
That's low. That's like $100. It was usually about $100 if you buy your friends a couple rounds.
Yeah.
Things like that. Like I go out now and I can buy my friends a round and get food, and it's still less than average bar tabs were.
Yeah. I mean, you go out, you get 3 cocktails. There's $45 just in cocktails. You know,
And you
if
go
you're
to a
getting
dinner with 2 people, you each get a dinner, an appetizer, a dessert, and 3 drinks each. Go do that without the drinks, and you're like, how is this only a $30
You're
bill?
like, another round of sandwiches for everyone, please. I got that kind of money. I don't
Another
drink.
round of waters, it's
Yeah.
on me.
Okay, so and because I sat in on your interview process, you know, and were you sober at that point?
Nope. So the last shift at my old job was my first day not drinking. And I think, so this is kind of one thing I really wanted to talk about was how for some people it doesn't, like for me, I didn't understand how a person becomes sober. Like I didn't know how that looked. And so for me, now that I'm looking back on it a year later, I use the phrase really slowly and all at once at the same time. So I watched you be sober, and I watched you slowly become like the muscle man and the tattoos and the happiness and the like reliability and the like you were constant and you were stable. And so I watched that kind of occur and slowly felt that envy like boil in me. And I had another friend, Margarito, who works at Starks, was also a really big part of my sobriety, was watching him. He just quit one day on January 1st. He said his New Year resolution was to quit drinking, and he did. And I admired him for that. And every time someone told me they were sober, I was really jealous. And I think that's because I always knew. I always knew that I was an alcoholic. I knew it. And so the day I decided to quit drinking was after the Fog Belt interview. I had already started, and I had had 2 shifts with Eric. Mm-hmm. Eric is about 3 times my size. He's been drinking a lot more, a lot longer than me, and I was trying to keep up. So my first, 2 shifts at Fog Belt, I was drunk. And it was starting to kind of become obvious that either I was going to get fired or I had to quit. And my last day drinking, I can't remember exactly how many I had, but I was sitting at the bar at Margarito's Bar at Stark's, and I'm pretty sure I was about 7 deep. I had 3 there, and then I went to Cooperage and had 2. And Rachel from over there, she's now at Russian. I was talking to her, fucking drunk babbling about how I was going to start microdosing mushrooms to fix my life. And she hit me with well, it sounds like you need to quit drinking. And she had no interest in my life. She had no investment. It didn't matter to her if I did or not, but...
She just objectively looked at it and she was like, you remove the alcohol, it sounds like a lot of these problems go away.
It was exactly it. And Rachel, God love her, was blunt. Rachel
she's pretty blunt.
She's a pretty dry person. And I kind of owe her for the final push of, I looked at the beer sitting in front of me. It was a Runaway Abbey, the Belgian Blonde.
Mm-hmm.
Super good. And told that beer that it was my last beer. And I woke up that next morning and it was day 1. And I said it over and over again. And I think, if I am honest with the last year, I think the hardest drink for me to say no to was the first shot of tequila my coworker offered to buy me for my last shift. And I think it was hard because it was real. It meant that it was a real thing, that I was really going to have to do this.
Because there's so many times where you're like, I'm going to do this thing, you know, and then the second the opportunity arises for you to go back on it, you go, I'll do it later, you know, but...
Like, nobody knows that I was going to quit.
Exactly.
So I wouldn't be disappointing anybody, but I would have been so disappointed in myself.
Well, and that's a big reason why I tell people to be, like, vocal about and being open about being an alcoholic, is because, like, if you try to internalize all this stuff, like, you're already internalizing so much as an alcoholic as it is. So, I mean, you should try to... You kind of have a blueprint of success, which is, I'm going to do the opposite of everything that I've been doing. But by being open about it, it makes it real, and it makes people feel uncomfortable to drink around you. And that's really what you want, is you want to make it so, like, the people around you know that you're taking it seriously. Because if you're just like, okay, today I'm not going to drink, and then someone's like, hey, like, let me get you a drink, especially if you've already come to the realization that you're an alcoholic in your head.
That was, I think, the hardest part, was the balance between knowing I was an alcoholic and then the quitting. I think there was like a week where I looked at it where I knew it was a problem. The first week at Fog Belt, and between Fog Belt and Steel and Hops, and the change of environment from a slightly toxic, encouraging drinking environment to Fog Belt, which is the healthiest work environment I've ever experienced. It's the healthiest environment I've ever been in. And so I had to really examine, like, my choices and the thing. And I knew in that first week that I was an alcoholic, and I had no choice, really.
Well, and the thing that I've always tried to kind of, like, help on this channel too is that, like, being an alcoholic, you know, I think people are afraid to brand themselves as that, is to don that new persona or identity that, like, I'm an alcoholic, and it always comes with this air of negativity, but, like, it's not. And, like, sobriety is subjective to the individual as anything else is. So when, you know, like, if you're going to look at being an alcoholic as a negative thing, then it's going to feel like a negative thing to you. But if you look at it like the way I have looked at it, where I'm like, yeah, I'm an alcoholic, and what that means is I've addressed that I have a drinking problem, I've stopped drinking, and I've worked on fixing my life. So now it's just another part of me where, like, yeah, like, I do competitive powerlifting, and I model, and, like, I'm really into, like, horror movies. I'm an alcoholic. I love eating burgers, like, 5 times a week.
Part of who I
am. It just becomes a part of who you are, and it doesn't have to be your sole defining characteristic.
It's not this all-consuming thing where your whole life shifts and everybody shuns you and you're like the dredge of society. No, you just can't consume poison. Which, I mean, to be fair, poison is bad for you, and
poison is bad. But so I also try not to, like, I try not to put so much of the blame on the substance itself, you know what I mean? Because
not
ultimately,
everyone has a problem with it.
Well, yeah, and, like, I look at it as, like, it's the way that it makes us feel makes us have a bad relationship with alcohol because we're addicted to that feeling, right? And like when we start that feeling, we can't get enough of it, you know, like, and you start making decisions that are bad, and every time you drink, that's what happens. Or even if it's like, well, not every single time I drink, something bad happens. I'm like, okay, but the majority of the bad things that happen in your life happen when you're
like,
drinking.
are you capable of having one and
Yeah.
being like, that's enough for today? Because there was no point that I had one beer.
I would take that a step further, and like, I don't think I watch how a lot of other people drink. Even just today, I waited on these girls, and they sat there. They nursed like 2 ciders over 5 hours, and they didn't even finish the second round. You know, so I would take it to the step that they're like, can you have one? And not, I don't even think a lot of people really think about it. They're like, oh, we're gonna get a drink, and they sit there and eat food, and then when someone's like, you want another one, or you got, you know, that it's like kind of being like, do you want more fries? You're like, no, we're fine. I don't want any more of that, you know. And whereas if you're going out to just to prove to yourself, like, I can just have one, like the amount of like mental energy it takes for you to be like, no, I'm fine, I don't need this, and I'm actually fine with it. But like there's
It's
so
stressful.
such a process where it's like, hey, if you don't drink at all, you don't have to think about any of that shit. And now you're present and like talking with the people that you went out with.
Which I really want to touch base on that too. I was recently talking to a friend who is always kind of bouncing back and forth between like kind of taking a break, but kind of goes back to it. And she was talking about setting boundaries where it's like, okay, I can have during the week, but not on the weekends. And that works for some people, and I think that's great. But for me, that was way harder than just quitting.
Yeah.
Like, quitting is so easy because you don't have these weird hoops you're jumping through. You don't have these weird guidelines where
It's
it's
just,
like,
I
okay,
don't
well, it's
drink.
Friday, so Friday means I can have 1 margarita, half a beer, and 1 shot.
I literally stood in that kitchen with Jenica writing down the days out of the year that I was allowed to have alcohol. And I was like, my birthday, no, oh, and this day is important to me. But the crazy thing is that I was like, okay, these are the days that everyone's going to know that I'm drinking. I'm going to drink secretly the whole fucking time. You know, and it just like...
It's so hard to manage in your head because it's like you can't... Because trying to follow that rule, you're going to set yourself up for failure, and then you just find yourself not even being able to rely on yourself. And then
you're not
like,
happy.
At all.
You're not happy.
The self-loathing was unbearable.
Actually, let's talk about how is your life now?
Before we started, I asked Kyle, how long has it been since you've had the best... Your life has been the best it's ever been?
Yeah.
So for the last year, I got the job at Fogbelt, which has been the most important building, restaurant, infrastructure of my 4 years in California, 5 years. So I got the job there, which allowed me to afford a new car, which I really wanted. I moved into this amazing house. I have the healthiest relationship I've ever been in. I have a healthy relationship with my mother and my father, which I've never had before. I am a good dog mom. I love my dog, and I don't leave him home because I'm drunk. And it's within a week of quitting, everything fell into place. It wasn't this like slow dredge back. It was almost instantaneous for me that this was.
And that path is different for everybody, you know. But like, it's crazy. I think a huge part of what getting sober is just being honest now. You know, because you're honest with yourself, and when you're honest with everyone else in your life, like you shine. You know, like people are drawn to you. You're reliable, and when you don't have things in the back of your mind that you're constantly regretting or feeling bad about, you're bright and you're happy. You know, and since you don't have the feeling of alcohol to rely on for fun, you have to start doing things that bring you enjoyment. And so then you have people from the outside that are looking in, that are maybe those envious drunks that are going, look at this chick. I mean, she's always going on hikes and she's got all these little art projects, and they're bitter because you have things going on and you're enjoying yourself, and it's like, why does she not need the alcohol? You know, and it's like, that's what this channel has always been about, is that I'm like, you can do this. I was exactly as you are now. Maybe I was worse off than you are now.
But just because you weren't worse than him doesn't mean there isn't a problem. I wasn't... Even Jenica just said she was surprised when I came out as an alcoholic.
Yeah.
She said she didn't see it. Nobody saw it. I mean, once I admitted to it, I had some people like, oh yeah, you were a big drinker. But they drank like me, and so it's hard for them to hear me admit to being an alcoholic because I think they have to admit to it. But it doesn't have to be drunk, passed out in your own piss in a gutter. It
And
is
then
just
people
the
use that as to
unhealthy.
be like, I'm not there yet. And it kind of protects what they're doing so they don't have to like admit that yet or really look at themselves in the mirror.
And something crazy doesn't have to happen for you to decide to quit. I didn't get a DUI.
Yeah.
I never got in trouble. Nothing happened. But I quit before something happened.
What I like to say is like, rock bottom is just the moment you realize that you're an alcoholic and you need to stop drinking. Sometimes that is you crashing into a tree, and other times it's just a moment sitting there and being like, I'm done. Rock bottom,
Not
like,
happy.
I don't even think that rock bottom necessarily needs to be negative either. I mean, really, it should be a positive thing if you start working on it, because you're just digging yourself into this early grave. And rock bottom is when you hit the bedrock and you go, you know what? I'm going to stop doing this. I'm actually going to fix my fucking life.
In a hole, stop digging.
Yeah.
First of all.
Yeah, I mean, you've grown into a really good, amazing friend of mine, and I love you, and I love having you in my life. That's something I did a lot in sobriety too, is I started just letting everyone in my life that I love, I let them know, like, doesn't matter who you are, I just like, because life is very short, and getting sober allows you to kind of be like, wow, like I actually give a shit about my life now, you know?
The people in your life when you become sober are the people you love. The people that don't mean anything and the people that were strictly drinking buddies, they leave.
Fade away, yeah.
The
Because you become a mirror
lost.
to them.
Yeah.
You know?
I lost so many friends by becoming this, and you know what?
Well, you didn't really
I
lose
didn't
any
lose
friends. Yeah.
I just made stronger bonds with the people. Like today, my best friend came over and she gave me a little plant and said, happy 1 year, this is a huge milestone, and I'm so proud of you, and started crying. And it made me cry, and it was like, this is it. Like,
it's like I'd much rather have like 5 or 10 amazing friendships than 50 acquaintances.
It's exhausting to
it's
try
quality
and keep
over
up
quantity.
and pretend like you like them, and it's a lot harder. It was a lot harder to drink and be that person than this. I have never felt so much like Sam.
Yeah,
like,
and you look amazing too, because physically you look amazing. You're in great shape.
I used to have really bad acne everywhere.
I was gonna say, like, your skin is
cleared up.
Yeah,
my hair is a lot healthier. I lost 3 pant sizes just by quitting drinking,
and
like a lot of gross weight just fell off.
And it's like just this kind of like water weight that we carry around, and a bunch of empty calories from the beer, and the stress, you have high cortisol levels, you're always wondering who knows what, and then on top of that, you know, most people aren't getting drunk and then going home and roasting a kale salad, you know. And don't get me wrong, I eat a bunch of cheeseburgers, but I also train a lot, you know, and I have my blood work done, so I'm good. I got good cholesterol, which actually kind of blew my mind. She was like, how many burgers do you eat? I'm like maybe like 12 in a week, right around there. She's like, there's too many burgers. I'm like, well, my blood.
First of all, I don't need that kind of negativity.
Yeah,
hamburgers alive.
Okay.
Okay, first of all.
A burger is basically a salad with different ratios, okay?
The croutons are just a lot bigger.
Yeah, and they're soft.
I fucking love hamburgers. And yeah, you get to eat what you want because you're not having to count empty calories from all your beers. Like, I lost weight and ate more food because it wasn't just like, it wasn't a hamburger and a beer. It wasn't eating a loaf of bread and a hamburger. I was eating a hamburger and drinking 3 glasses of water.
I mean, we're talking thousands and thousands of less calories throughout the month.
I mean, like, minimum 3 beers a day.
Yeah.
Minimum.
I mean, for me, it was like 6 to 9 was like my minimum. Right around there. And like, I mean, I was just fucking drunk all the time. And then with that Truly documentary that came out, I had to go back and like find all these old pictures of when I was drinking, and it was so weird. It kind of just felt like I was looking at like a different person's life almost, you know, because I'm so used to being this person now that it seemed very foreign to me. And like, I know that it was like a different life, you know, but it's bizarre. Oh, and that's the other thing I wanted to touch base on, just kind of popped in my head, is how throughout that whole first year, it's like, you kind of get that to be like, yay me, look at me go, I'm sober, I'm doing this, you know, and then it's like, it's kind of, you get to that year mark, and that's kind of where it's like, okay, this is your crown, you've done it, that means you can do it for the rest of your life. what is the next adventure?
Right. You don't get to keep tooting your horn about doing it. It's like, I think what I'm most excited for now that I'm outside of the year, because the first year you're just waiting to get to here. You're waiting to prove that I can get through birthdays, I can get through Christmas, I made it through Thanksgiving, I made it through really tough things.
Yes.
I last night I wanted a drink so bad. I drove around and just was so angry and I was so irritated and I just kept thinking like, because it was a big milestone. It was this really weird thing I was going through in my head.
Your brain was almost like wanting to self-sabotage it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I had my person, Sterling, drove around with me and we drove in silence and I was like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what I'm going through, but I'm having a...
That might even be a deep thing where it's like you're on the precipice of accomplishing something big and it's almost like you're like, do I even deserve this?
Yeah, it's like
fear
and it's everything. It was a big thing. And I didn't. I went home and I sat on my couch and I am California sober, so I still smoke weed, and I am developing a much healthier relationship with it. I'm being mindful of when I smoke weed. I'm asking myself if I'm okay with the timing. I specifically was hanging out with people who were smoking weed today and was like, I do not want to because I need to be articulate for this. But I'm a seamstress and I needlepoint, and I don't know if you've ever needlepointed. It's monotonous and awful. It's terrible. It's not fun, but to smoke weed, watch The Office, and needlepoint, that's like my vice.
Well, and like I have always said, I'm like, sobriety is subjective to the individual, and like my forte is alcohol. Like, alcohol was fucking up my life, like I smoked weed, periodically while I was drinking. I've smoked it a couple times since I've been sober, and it puts me in a super over analytical mental state. Like, it's not very relaxing for me.
Not for everybody.
Yeah, and I've tried it like a couple times since then. And like, don't get me wrong, I've smoked a fuck ton of weed throughout my life. Like, I used to be a whole pothead throughout high school and growing up, wake and bakes, and I've used a lot of drugs in my life as well. But like, weed has always been this thing where it's like, okay, like I'll have a little bit, and then I'm like, why'd I do that? And it's never really been, but it's never been like this problematic issue for me, and so when people were like, oh, like, you're not sober, this and that, I'm like, look, man, like, I don't drink. That's my vice. That was the thing that got me, It'd be like telling a heroin junkie when they get clean and sober, but they didn't have a problem with drinking, they can go out and it's kind of a non-plus.
Oh, you're not sober.
Yeah, exactly. Where I'm like, who the fuck are you to say what I am and what I am not? And at the end of the day, it ultimately does not fucking matter what people say or what they think
about my sobriety.
Yeah.
I know where I stand.
And that armor is for anyone that chooses to get sober, where it's like, it doesn't fucking matter what other people think of your sobriety. You are the one that define it, and you're the one that has to live it, and anyone else can fuck off. Like, that's really what it comes down to.
And we had that conversation because I still sip beer. I still try all the beers. I've had 3 sips of the kettle sour because that thing is so good. It's just cherry juice and it's delicious.
I would not know.
And I have the agreement with myself that I can have 3 sips, and I'm very firm on that rule. There is no exceptions. It's usually just 1. Sometimes we have a really nice bottle of red, and I go to these really fancy dinner parties with friends, and I'll try a sip with the meat. I don't have a problem. It doesn't make me want more. It actually makes me want less, and I try less and less now.
And it's probably because you have that, like, thing in the back of your head, too, where it's like, look, like, ultimately, that can end up being a slippery slope, where it's like, how many sips in an evening, and the next thing you know, you're like, fuck, I've had a drink kind of a thing.
All the way back to that, like, it's easier to just quit.
Yeah, exactly.
But I still like the flavors, and I can appreciate a good lager, hazy IPAs.
I know, and actually, I know a good handful of people that are sober, but they will, like, they'll be like, oh yeah, they like tasted the beer and like, but they're like, I'll never drink a drink, But for me, like, I made the decision early on to never do that because I know myself, and I know that I'm like, if I'm cool with a sip, then I could probably do like a 4 ounce. Exactly. And
but I know myself, and you know yourself.
Exactly. And it's different to each person. Each person
is different. But we got really off track because I wanted to talk about it. Now that I'm at my year, and now that I'm here and I've made it, I think that what I'm most excited for is to see what I am capable of becoming.
Yes.
Because I want to make it very clear to people watching this that it's kind of difficult to see this sitting here and being how the fuck am I going to do something? He's a Viking. He's this big machismo man. He can do anything. But, like,
You will become a Viking too now, Sam. You will be a man now.
But you weren't. You weren't a Viking.
I was a doughy little drunk. Yeah.
And I think that's really important to remember, is that
you can do whatever the hell you want to do. Yeah.
Anybody can do it.
If you can stop drinking, you can do whatever the fuck you want to do in life.
I can become so many things. And I know that because I'm an artist, full-time artist with a part-time job. The part-time job just always has paid better. But
should be here all week.
I'm just really excited to see where I go. And I've never been this excited for life. I was actually, borderline suicidal for over half my life. And I didn't think I'd make it to 25. And if I did, I didn't see the joy in what I would become. And I had no love of life.
No purpose,
and
no centering.
I didn't have a drinking problem my whole life. It wasn't until I was like 25 that I really started to drink. In high school, I wasn't a big drinker. I was really a nerd. And
some people become alcoholics way later in life, Yeah. It's just all it is an unhealthy relationship with alcohol.
I think it was 27. 27, I started drinking tequila, and 27 was like, I had to quit drinking tequila because it happened really fast. But I have this newfound love of my life, and I a little bit goes to you for that, and there's things that I will never be able to repay you for everything you've done to get me
here. You have repaid me in friendship. That is it. That is all that it is. And there is it's not, it's definitely not like the same way as like, oh, like you helped me pay for a car. Like helping someone is the payment, being able to help someone like unlock themselves and realize like their life doesn't have to just be this fucking spiral of sadness and misery and depression all the fucking time. Because then that leaks
into your life. Watching your friends be miserable affects me because I'm sad that you're not thriving. And it's been, I think everyone should give 3 months. Like, I think that no matter where you stand, give yourself 3 months. And if you find that you miss it and not much in your life changed, like, yeah, go back to it. But there's no harm in taking 3 months off.
Totally. The way you can look at it is like, if you take 3 months off and you save more money and you've lost some weight, you feel better about yourself, you get better sleep, you've cut some toxic people out. Like, if everything across the board has improved, then what do you have to go back to?
Right. Because you told me the one thing that got me for like really sticking to it was you're not going to regret it. Mm-hmm. You don't regret taking 3 months off drinking ever.
Anyone I've ever spoken with that has been like, yeah, I stopped drinking for a while, it was so boring. I'm like, what did you do with your time? Like, it's not enough to just sit there and be like, well, I'm sober, this isn't fun. And I'm like, being sober is just the catalyst, the opening, the opportunity for you to go out and do shit that you like. You figure out who the fuck you are, what you like doing, and then you go do those things and you connect with like-minded individuals, and then that gives you happiness. It's not enough to just sit there and be like, when does the magic start? Like, that's not how it works.
Where you're just fairy come and make
like, I've been sober for a month. Wait! Like, that's not how it works. It's just, it allows you to live your life.
The effort in.
Yeah.
And I got lucky because I've played soccer and I've been an artist since I can remember. So I knew when I was quitting what I was going to gain. I knew I was going to gain the clarity of mind to really pursue my art. And, I was going to clean up get my weight under control. And I play soccer with a bunch of dudes and they're all a little bit afraid of me because I'm mean and I'm quick. And since I quit drinking, I can think faster and I move quicker and I can make better plays and I'm a better soccer player. And to my core, that is the number one thing I am. I've been playing since I was 4 years old.
Well, and I also think like how you said where you're lucky because you have that to fall back on. I think most people have something that they like doing that they wish that they could invest more time in, but just drink it. Yeah, but just when people are always like, oh, I don't have the time. I'm like, but you got time to meet up for drinks. Mm-hmm. You got time to like go waste the night away. It's like you do have the time, but it's not important or valuable enough to you. Like when I train and people are like, oh my God, like you train for hours at a time. I'm like, it's important to me. Like, how like you'll go and waste an afternoon day drinking? Like, I'm training when you're doing that because it's important to me. So it's like you do have the time. Everyone gets 24 hours a day.
Right.
You know, and of course we all have other responsibilities, but you find a way to make it work.
You make time for the things that are important.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like, how much time? I mean, it's not even about drinking. Drinking was just the start of acknowledging an unhealthy lifestyle. But, like, how much time do you spend just watching TV? I don't ever just watch TV. I can't just sit down and watch something. I have to be sewing. I have to be doing a puzzle.
I'm trying to play this video game right now called The Last of Us. Everyone has told me to play this game, and I know it's a really good game. But it's hard for me to sit there and be like, okay, burn 5 hours right now. You know, it's
I got that time. I don't have time for that.
And it's like, and I like video games. Like, I think they're awesome, and they only get better. You know, but like. It's hard for me to make that agreement with myself that I'm going to sit there and play this
because I know all the other things I can be doing. I know so many things that are
like, don't get me wrong, if you're gonna like,
if you love video games, that's great.
And if you're gonna lay around just watch TV, then you might as well play a video game.
Right,
you know?
At least you're doing the brain games and you work on. But I mean, it's just what you are going to prioritize in your life. And you get to pick. You choose it. You 100% get to pick what your life looks like.
And I think it's important to know that, like, you do get that thing that you can do that allows you to veg out. And so, like, if, your TV or video game or whatever the hell it is that, because if you're going all that, like, if you have, like, I'm working out and I worked and I got this thing going on the side, then, like, downtime and time by yourself is a very important, like, rest is important. So it's not to say that you should be like, you're sober now and you got to fill every single second of your life with activities and like, what are you doing? Make your fucking dreams come true. Like you need to rest.
I just want to watch The Office for the 18th time. Leave me alone.
Even like in powerlifting or like any physical activity, but it's like you can't train 7 days a week. The most anabolic thing you can do is get good sleep and rest.
And I think that for me, a lot of it has come down to, like, with kind of reining in and finding a healthier relationship with weed and the quitting the drinking and I just want to be more mindful of my life. I want to make sure that as I sit down to smoke a bowl, am I okay with this? Am I okay that the rest of my evening I'm going to be a little stony baloney? Yes, because I'm a high-strung person and I have high energy and my brain kind of is always going. And weed for me helps with my body pain, my mental state of mind, and just as a nice release. It's a nice relaxing. And
not all mind-altering substances are the same. It's not like, I don't drink, but I know that I like to wind down with some crack. Like it's just not the same,
No, it's weed. It's just some weed. And
it's like if you drink coffee, like that's a stimulant, you know what I mean? Like,
those are my vices, the weed and the coffee, and I'll never give them up.
Put those together, and you get
fat poops.
Weed. Cut waffy. There we go.
Those both sound like things that come out of different
orifices. Okay, well, thanks for tuning in.
That's enough podcasting for today.
But yeah, we should. So what should we do in closing? We should wrap this sucker up. We're at 37 minutes.
That's a good time.
It is a good time.
Short attention spans. I
actually really like the long form, like I'll put on like a Joe Rogan podcast or something. I'll let that go in the background while I'm doing other stuff.
I mean, we can reach into that when we do our podcast, too.
Yes, I really do want to do that. We should do that.
I'm pretty sweaty, and so I'm trying to hold my arms down because I have this fat
You're like,
stains.
So,
I don't love
thank you guys so much. We're going to,
if you've been watching me mess with my hair, just keep this down here.
Got some in my nose I keep touching. It's okay. Bodies secreting bodies.
I don't know. I mean, I just think that if this hits you, like in the gut, and you feel like, if you feel that jealousy, or if you feel the envy, or you feel that maybe you kind of want to be a little bit like us, then do it. Just do it. I mean,
at the end of the day, the only difference between someone who's drinking and someone who's not is that the person that isn't drinking is not drinking. And that's it.
One really important step is the support. I could not have done it. I mean, I could have, and it would have been really hard, and it would have been a completely different journey. But I had the support of Kyle. I had the support of Margarito. I had the support of my significant other. I had the support of people who, because the first 3 months, I got drunk on champagne in my dreams regularly. And I remember waking up and feeling the guilt and the that I was letting everyone down. And it's not that I was doing it for them, but it helped knowing that if I slipped up, I would have to admit it to you, Margarito.
It's because you establish accountability, and that's where it's like, saying you're an alcoholic is that, like, there's such a powerful shockwave that goes through your life when you admit that you're an alcoholic. It changes everything. Like, it makes people that shouldn't be in your life, they're repelled by you because you're this reflection of what they know that they should be doing. It brings people that are close to you closer because that they see that you are going through something and you need support. The people closest to you, they know. Like, even when I was going around telling people, hey, I'm an alcoholic, I'm not going to be drinking anymore, they're like, duh. And like, granted, I was more,
even like me, it doesn't have to be this big surprising thing.
But at the end of the day, my whole thing to always let people know is that I am not special. Like, I am not different than you. Like you are just as much as a regular person that just might have a drinking issue that I did. The only difference is that I admitted it, vocalized it, and I worked on it, and I knew that shit would get better. And everybody can do that,
It gets
and
so much better.
It does. It just gets easier and easier. It gets better. Doors open up, and I
don't think twice about it anymore. I don't wonder if I'm going to be able to make it through a wedding.
Yeah.
I don't wonder about Christmas with my family. I don't wonder about...
People look at it like you have a superpower, and I'm like, it's because people are like, oh, I couldn't do that. And I always say this, even at the bar, we're like, oh, dude. They're like, how long have you been sober? 4 years? Dude, I couldn't do that. And I go, yes, you can.
You could.
You totally could.
If you want to, you can.
Yeah.
But you just have to admit it, and you really have to want it. And, find the people that are going to support you through it. But, like, you can rely on yourself and just
be
there for you.
You
and
can
listen
be your own
to
higher
yourself.
power.
Make space to check in with yourself. And if this is something that hits close to home,
Yeah.
Tomorrow's day one. Just,
That's a good way to put it. Tomorrow can be day one. Yeah.
I told myself probably 13 times that morning that today was day one. And it was something that I think it was my mantra for the day. And then day two, all day. Day two, day three, all day. I think I kept track until like day 17 or something. It was every day was one more day, one day longer. Because the last time I hadn't drank, I can't really remember. At least since I've been in California. I think I drank every day for like 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, most people don't, like, if you ask the average person, when was the last time you went a month without drinking? And most people will say, I don't know. And to be fair, in a month, usually, even if you have zero problems with alcohol, someone's going to invite you out to have drinks or something. But it's just, goes to show that it's ingrained in our society and in our culture that, it's part of what you do. I mean, you could make the same argument for like a lot of, like, when's the last time you went a month without eating pizza, but it's like, it's different because it's an altering substance.
Ruin your life.
Yeah,
pizza
exactly.
Ruins my life because I'm lactose intolerant and it gives me a foul...
I killed a man for pizza once.
I believe it.
Yeah, let's not talk about that. Yeah.
So bad.
Yeah. Goodbye.
But
then
for
that
real,
Law and Order, dun dun.
And then if we do start the podcast, I think that's a great idea because then that opens. Because for those of you watching, you watch this man a lot because you're here and you're watching this one. And,
I mean, maybe, I don't know.
The two things I want to say is one, everything you wonder about him is true. He is genuinely this person. He genuinely wants to help. He is genuinely one of the best friends I've ever had because he cares about me. So if you guys watch this and hope that he is really that good of a person, he really is. And
they're going to think I told you to say this.
He's got a gun under here and he's just facing at me, just like, say that shit, man.
And say I'm pretty.
And number two is that he is a support system for a lot of you, and a lot of you do turn to him for help, and he has been put in situations that he isn't even responsible for, and he still wants to help. And I think if we do the podcast, I can be there for some of you because I genuinely want people to thrive. I'm really hard on my friends, and I'm known as the mean one and the bitch because I tell it how it is, but I just see what people are capable of. And I think that this
cut through the bullshit. Sometimes they just need that mental slap.
Need to hear. And this is how we change the world, is by being there for one another and encouraging growth. I want each and every person to thrive and be the best version, because that's when we get to make a difference. And so I think by creating a space as a podcast, and we can bring Jamie on, and we can bring Margarita, and we can bring other sober people who we can create a network of support for those of you who
I
feel
think
like you don't have someone.
it can be like, it can kind of grow into just like, we talk to a bunch of different people from a bunch of different aspects, you know,
People
and
who
just,
don't have drinking problems.
yeah,
what
or
that
like
feels
even
'cause
maybe
I
other
have no
bartenders,
idea.
like their relationship with what they see, people over the years. I've watched barflies die. Like, I've seen people drink and then they're like, oh, he died, you know, and you're like, wow, that's fucking crazy. Remember Janice from fucking Nailworks? The old lady? Anyway, she ended up dying, yeah. But yeah, no, I think this is something I really want to do, because ultimately I like this long form, you know, and sometimes when I'm doing my own videos, I feel like I'm like, okay, I got to keep it within this time frame, you know, but I really like the form of a podcast. And
I like the going on, because this is what we do. We were having a quick meeting while I was eating my lunch at work the other day, and I was talking about how he was talking about how I'm an alcoholic, and I said the phrase, well, I don't really think I'm an alcoholic. I just, didn't have a healthy relationship with drinking. And that's really funny, because that's literally exactly what
that's what alcoholism is.
And so I think if we could sit down and just banter like this back and forth, we say cool things, because we both have these really big ideas, but we both genuinely care, and we both want, this one may not hit somebody. This one may not.
And there's always, I don't know, it always feels a little bit different when you know you're being recorded.
I hate this.
Yeah.
I'm sweaty.
You're like, so we're gonna do a podcast.
We're gonna do a podcast. We'll leave it at that.
Let's wrap it up. We're at 45 minutes. Good job.
Okay. Thanks, y'all.
Anyway, have a good night.
Have a day.
Or good morning. Anyway, we really botched the ending.
Do it. You got it.
Stay sober!